Hi students, I welcome you all for control system lectures. In the previous class we have discussed what is root locus method. We have given a set of rules how to construct root locus method. As we know, the Routh-Hurwitz criteria gives the absolute stability of the system. So to find the relative stability, root locus is used, right? So if you have a closed loop system in which you have one unknown parameter, that is k, you can compute the relative stability by varying the k factor, right? So let us consider a closed loop, simple closed loop feedback system, closed loop system with k as a gain, controller gain, and g of s is a plant output, that is open loop transfer function. H of s is feedback transfer function. For unity feedback, h of s is equal to 1, right? From this block diagram, if you compute the transfer function equation, we get c of s by r of s is equal to k into g of s, right? um, k into g of s into g of s by 1 plus k into g of s into h of s, right? So as we know, for unity feedback, h of s is equal to 1, and what we left with is k by g of s, k into g of s by 1 plus k g of s. So if you are representing the transfer function in terms of pole 0 equation, it can be written as the equation 1, s plus z1 s into s plus z2, so on s plus zn, where z1 z2 is so on zn are zeros to the poles, that is s plus p1 into s plus p2 and so on s plus pn, where p1 p2 so on pn are poles. So if you are considering any closed loop system, as I mentioned, the unknown parameter k can be varied such that the system stability can be relatively varied. That means if you have a k parameter, by varying the k parameter, the overall system poles can be varied. When the pole location varied by varying k, right? Uh, so that the system can be relatively stable. As we mentioned in the previous class, the root locus can be plotted in which the locus will start from the pole and ends at 0, right? Locus will start at pole and ends at 0. So the point at k equal to 0, is the point where the root locus will start from the pole. When you're increasing k value which is tending towards infinity, the point where the locus ends, that is at 0, the point at that point k is equal to infinity. When you are varying k from 0 to infinity, the root locus will start from pole and ends at 0. If there are no zeros, it will end at infinity, right? This is how we can vary the k value such that the relative stability can be estimated, right? um, so what is the characteristic equation of closed loop transfer function? So characteristic equation of closed loop transfer function is the denominator factor tends to 0. You're equating this denominator factor to 0, we get the closed loop characteristic equation, right? So from here, characteristic equation is q of s, right? This is q of s, and q of s is given as 1 plus k into g of s h of s. For unity feedback function, h of s is equal to 1. Therefore k into g of s is equal to minus 1 from here, right? So like from this equation, s is a complex variable and we can represent the s in complex form. Like we can represent this s in terms of polar form by segregating the magnitude and phase, right? So magnitude criteria and phase criteria, this is k into g of s, can be represented in terms of magnitude and phase, that is equal to minus 1 plus j0, right? So where magnitude is P of s and phase is angle of P of s. So the important point to consider this particular thing is, as we know, this root locus was introduced to us by VR even. So these are the conditions to be satisfied, which are called Evans conditions. Evans conditions, where P of S magnitude should be equal to 1 and the angle of phase angle of P of S should be equal to plus or minus 2q plus 1 into 180 degrees, where q is tending to 0, 1, 2 and so on. So these are Evans condition. The plot, when you are plotting a root locus, these two conditions should be satisfied, right? So let us consider a quick example to estimate the stability of the system. If you remember the previous class, we have discussed the set of rules to construct the root locus. What I will do in this class is I will be giving the 4 examples for you, in which all the 4 examples, if you see, whole rules can be covered. Right? I will start from the easy level, then I will go to difficult level. That means I'll start with using the minimum set of rules to construct from initial problem. Then when we are going for further problems, we'll be covering all the steps which include which should be required for the root locus to be plotted. Right? So consider g of s here. G of s is equal to k into s plus 2 into s plus 3 divided by s into s plus 2 into s plus 4, where numerator is zeros, denominator are poles. So how many poles are there and how many zeros are there in this case? We have 3 poles, s at origin, s equal to minus 2, s equal to minus 4. So 3 poles are there, m equal to 3 poles and 2 zeros, right? S equal to minus 1 and s equal to minus 3. So if you are plotting that those poles and zeros in S plane, what we get is j omega phi. This is origin, and the 0 here at minus 1, and at minus 3 we have another 0. At origin we have a pole, at minus 2 we have another pole, at minus 4 we have another pole. So if you remember the rules, the first rule what we discussed is symmetricity. So root locus will be symmetric about the real axis, right? So when you are starting any root locus, we have to check number of poles or zeros in the root locus initial step, right? So then second step is how many poles are there and how many zeros are there, we need to check. In this example, we have 3 poles and 2 zeros, where number of poles are greater than zeros, right? Number of poles are greater than zeros, p greater than z. Therefore, what happens is, as we know, the pole actually in root locus, the locus will start from the pole and ends at the 0. This is starting point and end. If there is no 0, the pole will start and reach infinity, right? So as we see here in this in this plot, once we represent the root locus, we know that there are 3 poles and 2 zeros. That means 2 poles will end at 2 zeros and 1 pole will end at infinity, right? So the next step is to check the odd numbers on the root locus, that is test signal, test point. When you are standing somewhere, when you are standing on somewhere on the real axis and looking towards your right side, the number of poles plus number of zeros should be equal to odd number, right? So here if I am standing at a test point, if I am looking towards your right side, number of poles and number of zeros, sum of number of poles and zeros should be odd. So consider a test signal here, look towards your right side, there is a 1 pole here, therefore the locus exists here, right? There is a locus exist here. Then once the locus exists here, next thing is check the test signal here, test point, check your right side, how many poles and zeros are there? There are 2, so there won't be a locus in between this part. And take another point here, look towards your right side, number of poles plus number of zeros are equal to 3, therefore there exists a root locus here, right? Then you take here signal, there are even number of poles where there won't be a locus here. Then come here and check how many poles are there, how many poles plus zeros are there. After -4 there are total of 5 poles and zeros, right? So there exists locus here. This means the number root locus actually starts at this pole at origin and ends at -1. The second root locus, second part of the root locus starts at -2 as a pole and ends at -3 0. And the third point is the root locus starts at -4 and ends at infinity. We don't know where exactly the infinity is about, right? So this is how to plot with the first 3 steps for this problem. Then we'll consider another problem here to check the further steps in the root locus. So here actually the steps or rules of the root locus is used whenever it is required. Actually, when we are required to use the step, then only we have to use it. It depends on the problem which they give. It once you see all the 4 problems, you'll get an idea where to use the step, actually where to use the rule, right? So the coming to second problem, g of s is equal to k into s plus 1 divided by s plus 2 into s plus 3 into s plus 4, right? So number of poles is equal to 3, number of zeros equal to 1, right? So once you plot the root locus, the first step is to locate number of poles and zeros in the s-plane. So we know that from the transfer function given s equal to -1, we get 1 0 here, right? At s equal to -2, -3 and -4, you get 3 poles. -2, -3 and -4. So next step is to check towards your right side to represent the locus, right? When you're standing here, if you see towards your right side, right half of s-plane, there are no zeros or poles. M plus n is equal to 0 at this point, right? So you take another point here, look at towards your right side, there is 1 0, therefore it is odd, therefore locus exists here, right? So if you are standing somewhere here and look at towards your right side, since the even number of poles and zeros are there, there won't be a locus here. So then come to here, as we mentioned, the root locus starts at pole and ends at 0 or infinity. In this case, we have 3 poles and 1 0. One pole will end at 0, the other 2 poles should end at infinity, because there are no other zeros here in this. So as we know, this locus exists between this, but where this plot will end actually, we know in between this locus is there, but this is not the ending point. Somewhere we have to check with the ending point. So to check with the ending point, we should know angle of asymptotes, right? Topic called angle of asymptotes. So the purpose of using angle of asymptotes is coming in this case, where you have 2 poles and there are no zeros, and we should estimate where that locus is tending towards, which angle it is making with respect to the real axis, right? So which is given as phi a is equal to 2q, phi a is equal to 2q plus 1 divided by m minus 1 into 180 degrees, where q tends to 0, 1, so on, m minus n, right? M minus n. So what are a number of m? M is number of poles, n is number of zeros. So how many we have? M is equal to 3, n equal to 1. So we need to take q as 2 terms, that is 0 and 1, right? So the angles which it makes is 0, like we need to substitute 0 and 1 in this to get the angles 90 degrees and 270 degrees. Okay, so once we get substitute q equal to 0, we get 90, and once you substitute 1, we get 270. So the poles will deviate from the real axis, making the angle of 90 and 270 with respect to the real axis, right? um, so so this let us consider here the pole, as we mentioned, it will start from this pole and tends towards the 0 actually. So somewhere in between these two poles, the angle it will make with respect to one pole is 90 degrees with respect to the real axis, 90 degrees, and the other pole will make with respect to the real axis as 270 degrees. 270 is this. This means the pole will start diverging at certain point in this, but what point it actually diverges we need to check. For that again we have to use a point of there is a point called the breakaway point. We'll see that in other example, but we'll go as a stepwise. As of now what we know is it will be diverging from the real axis at certain point, but while diverging, what angle does it make is through angle of asymptotes, right? So angle of asymptotes, one will make 90 degrees, one will make 270 degrees, and it will diverge, right? Next thing is, okay, it is diverging, but whether it is going straight away straight in this way, or how it is actually traveling. So for this we need to know the centroid. Centroid tells the path actually, the slope it travels, the path. How to get that centroid is given as zeta A is equal to summation Pi minus summation Zi, that is sum of all the poles minus sum of all the zeros divided by number of poles minus number of zeros. Okay, so here number of poles are 3 and number of zeros are 1, therefore what we get in the denominator is 2, and if you calculate the centroid, what we get is minus 4. So the centroid tells the path actually, right? So here what we drawn before is this path 90 degrees, but actually the path deviating from the real axis will be parallel to, or else we will be actually following the path through the centroid. Will make the angle 90, and the path will be given by centroid actually. At the centroid point it will be diverging. So as we mentioned, the plots from the poles will start, and somewhere it should deviate, right? So here wherever it deviates, it will follow the path with respect to the centroid. So this is how we get using centroid. Now what we need to do is breakaway point and break-in point. So where the purpose of breakaway or break-in comes is when you have number of poles greater than zeros, there will be a breakaway point. When number of poles like less than number of zeros, then you get break-in point. Break-in point. So breakaway point is the point at which the two poles or the poles on the real axis will be breaking the real axis and going away towards 0. Break-in point is you have zeros on the some infinity value or complex value, and you have a 0 to end on the real axis, where you need to use the break-in point. That means the point at which the plot will come to the real axis and it will tends towards the 0, right? So this is if you have two poles, right, the poles tends towards the 0. As we see here, a pole here, that means 0 here, it will start and tends towards 0, and the point where it meets real axis is the break-in point. When you consider poles on the real axis and somewhere zeros on the imaginary axis or somewhere on infinity, as we know, the poles will start, the locus will start from the pole and deviate towards the zero. The point at which the plot or locus deviate on the real axis is breakaway point, right? So this is breakaway point and this is breaking point. In this example, what we have is two poles. That means the poles tends towards zero, right? Therefore, we have breakaway point. We need to do breakaway point. How to calculate it is take dk by ds equal to 0. How we get this dk by ds equal to 0? So from the characteristic equation we know 1 plus k into g of s h of s is equal to 0. H of s is unity feedback, therefore h of s is equal to 1, and whatever leftover terms is k into g of s equal to minus 1. That means k equal to minus 1 by g of s, right? So from here k is equal to, just substitute g of s here and compute the roots. Once you substitute g of s and find dk by ds equal to 0, right? This is k, and find the differentiation of it, and for that differentiation find the roots. And for this particular problem, what we got as a roots is s equal to minus 3.5321, s equal to minus 2.3473, and s equal to minus 2.126. As we required the breakaway point in between minus 3 and minus 4, out of these three roots, only this particular root will satisfy our need, our purpose. Because this is s equal to minus 3.5, which is lying in between two poles, which our poles, where we required breakaway point. Therefore, breakaway point is minus 3.15. That's why I have started from this point when I showed in the previous plot, right? So this is the point where your plot starts in the real axis, which is the breakaway point, and will tend towards a centroid point. Centroid is minus 4, which will be tending towards the centroid. Centroid tells the direction of the root locus, in which direction it should travel. Angle of asymptotes will tell the angle it should make with respect to the centroid, right? Centroid is actually tells which path it should travel. Centroid is minus 4, so it should travel perpendicular to minus 4, right? When it is traveling from minus 4, what angle it will make with respect to the real axis is given by angle of asymptotes, right? That is how we get angle of asymptotes, breakaway point, and everything is having a purpose here. All the rules are actually having purpose. It is telling the direction of the root locus to travel in the S-plane, right? So we used a few steps here. There are few more steps actually left with, and as for this example, the other rules are not required to be used. So we'll take another example where the other rules will be used. Leftover rules we can use it here. So third example, g of s is k by k into s1, s of s plus 1 divided by s square plus 4s plus 13. If you find the poles and zeros, the poles are minus 2 plus or minus 3j, and 0 is s equal to minus 1. From this, just locate the poles and zeros on the s-plane. Minus 1, we have a 0 here, and we have pole as a complex pole here, right? Complex conjugate poles. Minus 1 plus 3j, minus 2 plus 3j, minus 2 minus 3j, right? So once we plotted, you just check the root locus, path of root locus, stand somewhere on the real axis, check the path, whether it is there, how many poles plus zeros are there on the right half of S-plane. If you stand somewhere, anywhere on the real axis after this 0, we get odd terms, because once you have a complex conjugate poles, whatever the real axis pole is there, you will be adding 2 for that. right? Any number of complex conjugate pole will be adding those like 2 or 4 or even numbers to that part. So what we need to consider if you have this kind of complex conjugate pole in a real axis is, if you consider real poles are zeros, that is sufficient to estimate the root locus actually. See, in this plot we have 1 0, and if you stand anywhere on the real axis, if you see towards your right side, there will be odd number. Because if you stand here, see towards your right side, you have odd number. If you stand here on the whole left side of yours, there are actually 3. Since they are complex conjugate, no need to consider, because anyway you have odd. If you add even to odd, you get odd itself, right? Hope you got this point here. Next thing is angle of asymptotes, right? Angle it will make with respect to the root locus, that is 2q plus 1 divided by m minus n into 180 degrees, where q tends to 0, 1, so on m minus n. We have 2 poles and 1 0, therefore we need to consider only one angle of asymptotes. Why? What is the reason to see? Actually, there is an interlink between, when once you get to know number of poles and zeros, you will understand how many asymptotes you get. Because here if you see, there are 2 poles and 1 0. As we know, one pole tends towards 0 and we need to find the other pole tending towards infinity. So whatever the leftover poles which are tending to infinity, that only we should consider for angle of asymptotes, right? So here there is only one pole which tends towards infinity. We need to find the angle which the other pole will make with respect to the infinity. So we will be getting only one angle of asymptote, because only one pole left with, right? So once you calculate, angle of asymptotes will be 180 degrees. So it will make 180 degrees angle. 180 means what? With respect to real axis, 180 is this direction, right? Okay. Then what we get is next thing is the breakaway point and break-in point. Here what we have is 1 0 2 poles, and pole tending towards the real axis and ends at 0. So the pole, either this pole or the either minus 2 plus 3j or minus 2 minus 3j, tends towards the real axis and converges towards real axis and end at 0. So what we need to find here is break-in point, because the pole will start and ends at 0. This pole will start at ends at another 0 somewhere at the infinity. That's why we need to find a break-in point in this case. Break-in or breakaway, the formula remains same, that is dk by ds equal to 0. Then once you substitute dk by ds equal to 0, characteristic equation in this, find the roots. For this point, what we got is minus 4.16 and 2.16. As 2.16 is the real root which is lying on the right half of S plane. So here it is not required for us, because there is no locus here. So therefore it is not required for us to consider 2.16, and we will consider minus 4.16. Minus 4.16 is somewhere here. So here we need to check, right? From here actually angle of break-in point is this point actually. Minus 4.16 is the break-in point. Right now, another point here we should consider is angle of departure. Angle of departure is phi p is equal to plus or minus 180 degrees plus phi. So where phi is the angle in which the pole which we consider the pole will make with the other pole r0. Right? If you consider a pole here, we have 2 poles and 1 0 in this example. So we need to find the angle of other 2 elements. When you are considering this particular pole minus 2 plus 3j, what are the other pole r0 will make angle with respect to this one, this pole. right? So individually we'll be getting 108.43 for of 0 with respect to this pole, and 90 degrees with respect to the other pole. And if you calculate this particular phi, the angle at minus 2 plus 3j is 198.43. How we got this? This is the angle in which the pole minus 2 plus 3j will make with respect to the other pole and 0. Okay, so this is the phi. Phi gives you the angle which it makes, and we have to add plus or minus 180 to that, right? So what we do is, once we substitute, the angle which we get here is 198.43, and the other angle you get is 161.57. See, minus 2 minus 3j is the pole here. This makes 161.57 as an angle of departure. Angle of departure means the root locus, how it departs from that pole, will make this particular angle, right? So then consider here, once you, with respect to real axis, this pole is making 161.57. That is somewhere till here. This is how we get, and this will make 198.43. So therefore, and these are the angle of departures, and which should join this real axis at minus 4.16. What is this? Break-in point. So from here we will get this kind of plot. It should join minus 0.16, and from here one should tend towards 0, one will be going towards infinity, right? So that is how we get the root locus. This is the locus. This is one locus and this is locus, right? So we'll consider another example. Actually, till here we covered almost all steps, but we are left with one particular step where if you have a root locus on the imaginary axis, what to do? What to do if you have a root locus? See, here actually pole will start and end at 0. There is no locus on the imaginary axis. We'll consider an example where you get a root locus on the imaginary axis, and we'll check how to solve that. So from this above problem, m plus n, that is number of poles plus number of zeros equal to odd, because what you get is there are no zeros here, only poles are there, therefore 3 poles, all the 3 poles here, and all the zeros, since there are no zeros, all the poles end at infinity. So now test point is somewhere, wherever you check the test point, look at towards your left side, it is odd and the locus exists on whole real axis, right? Now check with angle of asymptotes. Angle of asymptotes will give you 2q plus 1 by m minus 1 into 180 degrees, where q equal to 0, 1 and so on, m minus n, that is 3. Here the unknown path means at the end, like we don't know where it ends actually. So unknown zeros, unknown paths are 3 actually, right? So there is no 0 here. All the poles are there. All the poles should end at infinity itself. So we should get 3 angle of asymptotes, right? So from this formula, once you calculate the asymptotes, what we get here is, for 0 you get 60, for 1 you get 180, for 300 you get, for 2 you get 300, right? Now you have to calculate the centroid. So from the centroid itself we need to find these angles, we need to plot these angles. Centroid is the sum of poles minus sum of zeros divided by number of poles minus number of zeros. Once you calculate, centroid is minus 2.667. So the centroid, once you calculate, you get here you get centroid somewhere here, and what you get, the other poles are minus 4 somewhere here, one pole. Actually this is centroid, okay, this is centroid. We have a pole at origin, and pole at this axis here, actually minus 4, plus 4j, write this, and 4j plus 4j here minus 4j, right? These two, and centroid is this one, which will make 60 degrees, 180 degrees, and 300 degrees, right? This is how it will vary. One will make 60, one will make 180, and other will make 300 degrees. From where we got this? From the angle of asymptotes. So these three are done, and next thing is breakaway point. Breakaway point, we know characteristic equation should be equated to 0, where we get the roots here. If you check the roots, what we got is minus 8 plus or minus 4 root 2 divided by 3. See, the locus exists on the real axis, and if you are finding breakaway or break-in point, that is with respect to the real axis itself. Therefore, what the root we got is a complex root. Therefore, there is no break-in or breakaway point for this point. Next thing is angle of departure. Phi p is equal to 180 plus phi. Phi is minus 45 and plus 45. How to calculate this? The angles the particular pole will make with the other two poles, and this pole will make with the other two poles. Right? We have to consider only complex poles for this. Right? So if you calculate what we get, phi for minus 4 plus 4j, you get minus 45. Minus 4 minus 4j, you get 45. Right? That is what angle of departure is. Okay. So once you consider angle of departure, that is minus 45, that means departure will happen this way towards the centroid, actually towards the centroid, but centroid is telling that it is making angle of 60, 180 and 300. So therefore departure is coming towards the centroid, and centroid is showing the direction of the root locus towards 60 degrees, and the root locus will tend towards the imaginary axis. And for other pole also it is making 45 degrees, and this particular angle of asymptotes telling the route to travel in towards imaginary axis. If you check it here, the angle of asymptotes is telling 60 degrees, and which your root locus is meeting your imaginary axis at some point. So what we know is, as we are varying k value from 0 to infinity, root locus start from pole and ends at infinity. So we need to know what value of k is meeting at imaginary axis. So for this sake, we need to calculate Routh-Hurwitz criteria. Right? Once you check with the Routh-Hurwitz criteria, what is Routh-Hurwitz criteria? Once you consider a characteristic equation, form a Routh table from the polynomial equation for first two rows, and compute whole set of Routh array. Your Routh array should have all positive values on the first column, which tells the system is stable. So here, since we have a k value, what we get here is 256 minus k divided by s. When you substitute k equal to 256 here, this will become 0, which forms the auxiliary polynomial, right? We have solved this kind of problems in the previous class, where you get, when you have any 0 on the Routh array, first column of the Routh array, we need to take the preceding row as a auxiliary polynomial, right? So once you take auxiliary polynomial, what you get here is 8s square plus 256, because k is calculated as 256. For k equal to 0, you get 0. That's how k is equal to 256. And this is the point which tells the root locus meeting point, that is s equal to plus or minus j root 32 is the point on the imaginary axis for k equal to 256. So observe here, at k equal to 256, your root locus will be meeting your imaginary axis, and the particular value of imaginary root at that particular point is s equal to minus j root 32. Similarly, it is a conjugate term on the other end. You get at k equal to 256, s equal to j root 32. So this is how we get, if you have see, in all the problems what we see is the steps or rules we followed when the requirement comes actually. See this kind of problem where the roots are tending towards infinity, we didn't see this kind of plot anywhere in the other three problems. So my point here is whenever it is required to use the rule, we have to use for that particular problem. So it is problem oriented rules. So that's how we can plot root locus, and this is the end of the topic of root locus and end of the unit 2 of finding a relative stability. We'll be starting fresh unit 3 in the next class, right? So thanks for your attention. We'll be see you in the next class. We'll see you in the next class. Thank you.